Hello and welcome back to Ant's Gaming Suite channel. This is your host Anthony, and today we are back with another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet tutorial on how to defeat the 7-star Cinderace raid. So the 7-star Cinderace raid, if you haven't already, was first released between December the 29th all the way up into January the 1st. However, if you have missed those dates, there has been a lot of guides out there lately with the best Pokemon to use in order to beat Mighty Cinderace. However, also keep in mind that January the 13th, Mighty Cinderace will be coming back and will be staying until January the 15th, which is the Sunday, and pretty much ending around 4 PM PT time. So if you haven't already farmed enough, make sure you level up your Pokemon in order to get Mighty Cinderace. But before we jump straight into the video in terms of what Pokemon you should use, the skill, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and also leave a comment section down below whether this video has helped you out. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the content and tips and guide. So the first thing, if you are still new to the game and you haven't had the chance to even beat Charizard and still wondering how to get this 7-star raid, the first thing you have to do is make sure you quickly beat that main storyline, and then you're going to have to quickly also defeat all the gym leaders again, and then complete the Ace tournament. You will be triggered that there is a special raid, and pretty much then you'll be able to unlock the 6-star raid, which is when you'll have access to the 7-star raid. However, keep in mind that because Mighty Cinderace was released earlier on between December 29 in 2022, and then it did end January 1st, there has been a lot of guides in terms of how to defeat it. However, this is another guide, as Mighty Cinderace will be coming back January the 13th and will be ending January the 15th, so pretty much this coming weekend. So make sure you are prepared for. As always with the 7-star Tera raid, you always have to make sure that your Pokemon is level 100. Cinderace will be a fighting Tera type, making it weak to Psychic, Fairy, and Flying. You shouldn't use any Pokemon that has physical attack. You're mainly going to have to use Psychic type Pokemon. Some example could be the Espara or the Slowking, as those two are the very two popular Pokemon in its current stage in order to beat the Mighty Cinderace. However, before we jump to any specific move sets and what items you should give those particular Pokemons, we need to have a look at Mighty Cinderace ability and moveset. So the ability for Cinderace is called Libero, which pretty much every time he Terrorizes, there will be no effect. The next move set that is very important to make or keep note of for Cinderace is called Bulk Up. Pretty much what Bulk Up does is buff its defense and attack, and it does this on the first turn of every battle, and it will continue to do so throughout the Tera raid. So make sure you keep in mind of this particular ability. And the next moveset that he has is called Pyro Ball. As obviously it states, it uses this move most often and is pretty much going to fire a huge fireball at your Pokemon. The next that we don't rarely see and that it does mix up every now and then is called Iron Head, which is a steel type attack. He has Acrobatic, which is a flying, and then he has its final skill, High Jump Kick, which is a fighting type move. However, if you're lucky, Pyro Ball is going to be the most, common moveset that Cinderace will be. So the first Pokemon that we're going to go into, which is a great counter for Cinderace, the 7-star raid, is Espathra. Espathra has the ability called Opportunist, which raises the same stats as Cinderace. So every time Cinderace uses the Bulk Up ability, which increases Cinderace's own defense and offensive, this will apply to Espathra as well. A fairly good ability to have on this Pokemon. In terms of the 4 moveset that you want to have, the first is called Lumina Crash, which is going to be your primary attack for Psychic, which deals a good psychic damage and lowers the opponent's special defenses, which is pretty much the same defensive level between special defense and the defense on Cinderace. You also have Reflect, which increases the defense for the team as well. Very good support skill. You have Helping Hand. Every time you need a heal, you would use this to buff your team for 1 turn. And also you have 2 options here for your last. You can either use Calm Mind or the Feather Dance, pretty much to buff yourself or debuff Cinderace, whichever you prefer. However, I prefer just to use Calm Mind. In terms of the item that you want to put on Espathra, you want to be giving the Shell Bell, and also in terms of your EV effort, you want to focus on speed, attack, and defense for this Pokemon. Moving on to the next Pokemon, we have Armarouge. The only way you can obtain Armarouge is someone trades you playing the Scarlet version, but the ability Flash Fire is one of the best ones that you should have, which makes him immune to any fire damage. So how would you use Armarouge? It really depends. There are two specific moves that you should have. So we're going to go into the first one. So Acid Spray or Reflect are going to be a very good support skill, and along with being immune to fire damage, it makes it a very great idea to boost its own defensive. However, with Acid Spray, it's going to inflict a lot of damage and reduce the opponent's special defenses. Then you have Expanding Forces, which deals extra psychic damage type for any psychic terrain. That's why we're going to go for psychic terrain instead of Reflect, in my personal opinion. And then you can have the option of going either Clear Smog or Calm Mind. So with these two, if you use Clear Smog, generally you would use it after Cinderace has removed any negative buff from itself, in order to also remove its positive buff, which is the bulk up buff. You want to not have that as well. Alternative, a dedicated attack can use Calm Mind instead to buff itself, while its teammates use Acid Spray. So it's a very coordinated thing, but when it comes to online multitasking and trying to figure out who has what kind of specific skill, it comes a little bit of a challenge. And the last thing, as I did mention before, Psychic Terrain or Reflect really comes down to what you prefer. Usually I would pick Psychic Terrain over Reflect, but it really, like I said, once again, it's really difficult to say. What you can always have, if you're playing a group of friends, it might make it a little bit easier, where you can have one person use Psychic Terrain and the other person can use Reflect. And yeah, in terms of the EV, you want to really focus on speed, attack, and defense, in my personal opinion as well. In terms of what item to give, you'd probably be looking at the Shell Bell if you're not using the Espathra, or you can give it the Twisted Spoon. The final Pokemon for the best encounter for Cinderace, in my opinion, is Slowking. The ability Oblivious or Own Tempo is probably the two that you are going to be looking out for when you're trying to catch a Slowbro. In terms of how we are going to use it in order, I'll give you a quick rundown, but the first moveset that you do want is Iron Defense. So Iron Defense, the whole idea behind it is, with Slowbro, whoever gets debuffed first is going to be obviously the winner. So what you want to do is use Iron Defense until you have maxed out your defense, which is going to be a couple of turns. And then after that, you have a Nasty Plot, which uses which you should use as well until you max out your special attack. So you have two buff skills for your Slowbro. If you need to heal when you are buffing yourself, you would use the third skill called Slack Off. So what Slack Off does, use as needed to heal yourself, as I already mentioned. But the most important thing that you must have for Slowbro is the stored power, which will do a tremendous amount of damage. So stored power deals more psychic damage. The more users has its stats raised, so that's why we have both Iron Defense and Nasty Plot on. So when you're particularly doing this, the strategy is a bit risky though, because sometimes Cinderace will often wipe your buff, and at the same time you can be losing a lot of damage. So what you want to do if you're playing and hopefully your teammate is here when you're attacking Cinderace, is you would only attack it 2 times with Lamina Crush, and then someone would use Acid Spray to try and debuff the Cinderace, and then pretty much someone's going to keep cheering on your Slowbro to try and keep the Slowbro alive. However, as Slowbro is fairly weak, at times you can get easily knocked out. But however, once you get Slowbro maxed out, you have both your Iron Defense, you got your Nasty Plot, someone's using Acid Spray on that particular boss, you are for sure without a chance going to be able to defeat it using stored power. In terms of the EV, you're going to be focusing highly on speed, attack, and defense once again, just to try and keep this, the survivability up as much as possible. But anyway, so that is pretty much the rundown on how you're going to be using Slowbro. That is pretty much the meta at the moment. And yeah, hopefully this video guide helps you out for this weekend Mighty Cinderace raid. So if you haven't already, make sure you get a Slowbro, or hopefully you don't want to get a Slowbro. You can always get Orma Rouge, or even the Espathra, which I think personally might be slightly better. However, if you want to solo, Slowbro might be the way to do so. Anyway, until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video.